Tomu stood near the window of the small shuttle, watching the green and blue planet of Viraya grow larger in the sky. It looked peaceful from space, like a giant jewel floating in the stars. Tomu was one of the first humans sent to live on Viraya, as part of a cultural exchange between Earth and the Virai people. He had trained for this mission for months, but still, he felt nervous. He did not know what to expect. As the shuttle landed on a smooth silver platform, Tomu took a deep breath and stepped out. The air was fresh and warm. Strange trees with glowing leaves surrounded the area, and tall towers of stone and crystal rose in the distance. A small group of Virai stood waiting to welcome him. They had soft-colored skin, mostly in shades of teal, blue, or light purple. Their eyes were bright, and their clothing was made of soft, flowing fabric. One of them stepped forward. She had teal-blue skin and long dark hair tied in a braid. Her eyes were gentle, and her smile was kind. She looked to be around Tomu's age. She wore a silver sash across her chest and carried a small tablet. "Welcome to Viraya," she said in smooth English. "I am Mira. My father is the chief of this village. I will help guide you during your stay." Tomu smiled and gave a small bow. "Thank you, Mira. I'm Tomu. It's nice to meet you." The other Virai around them nodded politely and began to walk toward the village. Mira walked beside Tomu, pointing out different parts of the landscape. She explained how the trees produced clean air and how the ground crystals helped store energy from the twin suns. Tomu listened with interest, impressed by how closely the Virai lived with nature. The village was made of smooth, round buildings that glowed softly in the evening light. Children played in the open spaces, and adults worked calmly in gardens or workshops. Everyone seemed peaceful, but Tomu could feel their eyes on him. He knew they were curious. He was the only human in the village. That evening, Mira took Tomu to a small home near the center of the village. It was simple but clean. There was fresh fruit on the table and a folded blanket on the bed. "This is where you will stay," Mira said. "If you need anything, just ask me." Tomu looked around and nodded. "It's perfect, thank you." She smiled again. "Tomorrow, I'll show you our training grounds. We teach all our people how to stay strong and calm. Maybe you can join one of the sessions." "I'd like that," Tomu said. The next morning, Mira came to his door just after sunrise. She wore training clothes and had tied her braid higher on her head. Tomu followed her through the village to a wide open field where several young Virai were warming up. They practiced with wooden staffs, moving in smooth, balanced patterns. Tomu was given a light staff and invited to join. He copied the moves as best he could. Mira helped him, adjusting his posture with gentle hands and showing him the correct way to swing. She was quick and graceful. Her movements were like flowing water. After an hour, the group stopped to rest. Everyone sat under a large tree. Mira sat beside Tomu, wiping sweat from her forehead. "You learn fast," she said. "Thanks." Tomu replied. He paused, looking at her with a friendly grin. "You move really well, strong and smooth, and your form is impressive." Mira looked at him with wide eyes, then slowly smiled. Her cheeks turned a soft purple. "The Virai sign of happiness. Thank you. That's kind of you to say." Tomu noticed a few of the others looking at him strangely. One of them, a taller boy with sharp eyes, whispered something to another. Tomu didn't understand the words, but he felt a change in the air. Mira saw it too. She stood up quickly. "We should head back," she said. Tomu nodded, confused, but followed her. On the way back, she was quiet. He asked if something was wrong, but she shook her head. "Everything is fine," she said, though her voice was softer now. Later that evening, Tomu sat in his small home thinking about the day. He liked Mira. She was kind, smart, and strong. But he could tell something had shifted after their training. He replayed the moment in his mind, wondering if he had said something wrong. Just before he went to bed, there was a soft knock at the door. When he opened it, Mira stood there with a serious look on her face. "I need to tell you something," she said. "When you complimented me earlier, it means more here than it does on Earth. In our culture, Those words are only said between close partners or those ready to form a bond. Tomu's eyes widened. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I just meant it as a friendly compliment. I know. Mira said gently. I wasn't upset. I liked hearing it, but others may think we are connected in a deeper way. My father heard about it. Tomu stood still, the words sinking in. Is that bad? Mira looked down. He is the chief. He will want to speak with you. Tomu nodded slowly. Then I'll speak with him. I didn't mean to disrespect anyone. She looked up at him and gave a small smile. I believe you. But in our world, meaning and intent are not always the same. Be careful, Tomu, as she turned to leave. Tomu watched her disappear into the night shadows of Viraya. The stars above were bright, but something told him the days ahead would not be easy. The next morning on Viraya began with a soft golden light falling through Tomu's window. The twin suns had just risen. Birds with shining feathers flew past, singing songs that echoed across the stone walls of the village. But Tomu didn't feel peaceful. He sat on the edge of his bed, thinking about Mira's words from the night before. He had not meant to disrespect her or her people. On Earth, compliments were normal between friends, but on Viraya, simple words could carry deep meaning. Mira said her father had found out. Tomu had never met Chief Heron, but he knew the chief's voice held great power in the village. There was a knock at the door. Tomu opened it to find a tall Viraya guard standing with a serious expression. Chief Heron requests your presence, the guard said. Tomu nodded and followed the guard through the village. The path led through quiet gardens and under tall trees until they reached a round building made of polished stone and crystal. Inside, it was cool and still. A few elders sat in silence as Chief Heron stepped forward. Heron was tall and broad-shouldered. His skin was deep blue and his eyes were sharp. His presence filled the room like thunder. He did not smile. You are Tomu, the human guest, he said in a calm but firm voice. Yes, Chief Heron, Tomu replied, standing tall. I heard what you said to my daughter yesterday. Tomu felt his heart beat faster. I meant no harm. I only gave her a compliment. On Earth, such words are friendly. I did not know they meant something deeper here. Chief Heron looked at him carefully. The room was quiet. Then Heron spoke. Again, among our people, words shape bonds. What you said is not easily forgotten. Some may already believe you and Mira are promised to each other. Tomu's eyes widened. I never meant to bring dishonor. I respect your daughter and your customs. I will do what is needed to make this right. One of the elders leaned forward. She was an older woman with silver markings on her arms. Your words were not evil, young one, she said. But this is a moment of testing. To clear your intent, you must face the trial of intention. Tomu frowned slightly. What is that? Chief Heron stepped closer. It is an old tradition. You will take a journey through the inner forest, alone. You must find and return with the bloom of a sky-root flower. If you succeed, your heart is seen as clear and honest. If you fail, you must leave the village. Tomu took a deep breath. He had trained for survival, but he didn't know the lands well. I accept the trial, he said. I will prove I meant no disrespect. The elders nodded in agreement. The trial would begin the next day. That evening, Mira came to see him. Her face was calm, but her eyes held worry. I heard they gave you the trial, she said. Tomu nodded. I said yes. I don't want to leave like this. Mira sat beside him. The forest is large, and the sky-root flower is hard to find. It only blooms near the edge of the silver cliffs. You must follow the river until you hear the echo of the wind. That's where the cliffs begin. Tomu listened closely. Thank you. Why are you helping me? Mira smiled gently. Because I believe you, and because I don't want you to go. Tomu felt warmth in his chest at her words. He knew the journey ahead would be hard, but he also knew he wasn't alone in spirit. The next morning, Tomu packed light. He carried water, small blade, a light map, and a cloth bag to carry the flower. Mira handed him a small stone. This is a path stone, she said. If you hold it near a sky-root flower, it will glow softly. Tomu nodded. Thank you, Mira. I'll be back soon. She gave him a small wave as he walked toward the forest. The villagers watched in silence as he disappeared into the trees. The forest was alive with sound. Strange animals moved in the branches. Colorful vines twisted across the ground. Tomu followed the river as Mira had told him. The deeper he walked, the stranger the world became. Trees stood taller than buildings, and the sky above grew dim. From the thick leaves, he walked for hours. He crossed narrow bridges made of roots and climbed over fallen logs. Once, he heard the cry of a wild beast in the distance, but it did not come near at night. He found a small cave to rest. He built a fire using dry branches and watched the stars through the leaves. He thought about Mira, her voice, her calm nature, and the way she looked at him with trust. He knew now that his journey was about more than clearing his name. It was about proving his heart to the people and to her. The next day, he reached a wide open space. The river became a fast stream, and he heard a soft sound in the air. A steady wind hummed like a song. The cliffs were close. He followed the sound until he saw them tall silver walls shining in the sunlight near the edge. He saw the flower. It was glowing softly, petals open like a star. Tomu stepped carefully and plucked it with respect. The pathstone Mira gave him glowed gently in his hand. He had done it. As he turned to go back, he heard a rustle behind him. A young varied child had wandered into the forest, lost and scared. The child looked at Tomu with wide eyes, holding a scratched arm. Tomu lifted the child gently and began the walk back, carrying both the child and the flower. It would be a long walk, but he didn't care. His trial was no longer just about words, it was about actions. Tomu moved carefully through the thick trees, holding the small varied child close to his chest. The forest was alive with sound. Birds called from the treetops, and strange insects buzzed through the warm air. Every step Tomu took made the child's small arms tighten around his neck. "You're safe now," Tomu said softly. The child had wandered into the forest alone. His name, as Tomu later learned from a symbol on his belt, was Ren. He had likely followed a trail of bright forest lights and lost his way. Tomu had found him sitting near a thorn bush with a hurt leg and teary eyes now. As Tomu carried both the child and the glowing sky-root flower, he knew the journey back would be slower, but he didn't care. He had no choice. He couldn't leave the boy alone. Hours passed as he moved along the river's edge. At times, the path was blocked by vines or wet stones. He had to stop and rest more often. Ren was light, but Tomu's muscles were tired, and the weight of the day rested on his shoulders. Near midday, Tomu reached a wide gap in the trees. A fallen tree stretched across a shallow stream. He crossed it slowly, placing one foot in front of the other. The sky-root flower glowed softly from the cloth bag at his side, and Ren rested against his shoulder, now asleep. He remembered Mira's words before the journey. She had believed in him. That thought gave him strength. His legs hurt, his back ached, but he kept walking. Later that day, just before sunset, the edge of the village came into view. The crystal towers rose above the trees, glowing softly in the evening light. Tomu stepped out of the forest, tired but proud. Guards near the path saw him and ran forward. One of them recognized the child and shouted toward the village. Soon, others began to gather. Mira came running through the crowd, eyes wide with shock and relief. Tomu gently handed Ren into her arms. The boy's parents arrived moments later, crying and thanking Tomu again and again. Chief Heron appeared behind the crowd. His face was calm, unreadable. He looked at Tomu, then at the sky-root flower, still glowing in the bag. "You brought the flower," he said. Tomu nodded. "And the child, he was lost. I couldn't leave him." The chief looked at him for a long time. The villagers were silent, watching. Then Heron stepped forward and placed one large hand on Tomu's shoulder. "You passed the trial," Heron said. "But more than that, you showed heart." The crowd began to murmur with approval. Some smiled. Others clapped lightly. Mira looked at Tomu with pride in her eyes. "I knew you would make it back." Tomu gave her a small smile. "I kept thinking about what you said. That helped me more than anything." Later that evening, Tomu was invited to a small fire gathering with the village elders. He sat across from Chief Heron, who now seemed less distant. They shared a simple meal of roasted roots and fruits, and the air was filled with soft music from wind shells. One elder spoke. Today, you showed honor, not just with words but with your choices. Many who come from other worlds believe strength is power. But here, strength means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Tomu nodded. On Earth, we also believe that, or at least, we try to. Chief Heron leaned forward. You said kind words to my daughter. At first, I thought you were careless, but today I see your words were not empty. You respect her. That means more than you know. Tomu didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, Mira is strong. She's smart, and she helped me before I even stepped into the forest. If I earn any respect today, part of it belongs to her. Heron looked at him for a long time, then nodded. You speak with truth. The next day, Mira took Tomu to the village gardens. They walked between rows of colorful plants, some tall and others glowing softly. You didn't just complete the trial, she said. You became part of our story. Tomu smiled. That means a lot. Mira stopped near a small pond where soft light danced on the water. When you found Ren and carried him back, you reminded everyone of something. That piece is not just words. It's what we do when no one is watching. Tomu sat on a smooth stone near the water. That's what my father used to say. He believed. Honor is quiet, but powerful. They sat together for a while, listening to the water and the wind. The village was peaceful again. The misunderstanding that had once made everything tense was now behind them. But Tomu knew the journey wasn't over. There was more to learn, more to understand. His presence on Viraya still meant something important. The future between their two peoples was still being written. And as he looked at Mira sitting beside him, her eyes thoughtful and kind, he knew he wanted to be part of that story for as long as they would have him. The sun rose gently over Viraya, casting soft light through the tall trees and shining on the crystal towers of the village. The air was fresh, and the breeze carried the sweet smell of blooming flowers. Birds sang from the branches, and the village woke up slowly, as it always did. But for Tomu, this day felt different. Even though he had returned safely from the forest and passed the trial of intention, he knew his journey was not finished. There was something in the way people now looked at him, a mixture of respect and curiosity. He was no longer just a guest. He had become part of their story. Still, some of the village elders wanted more proof. The customs of Viraya were deep and sacred. It would take time for trust to grow fully. That morning, Chief Heron called for a gathering at the training grounds. Tomu stood with Mira near the edge of the field, watching as people arrived one by one. Many remembered the day he returned with the child and the flower. Now they wanted to see what else the human was capable of. Chief Heron stepped forward. His voice was strong and calm. Tomu has shown courage in the forest, he said. He returned not only with the skyroot flower, but also with a lost child. That alone speaks of his spirit, but to walk among us as one of our own. He must now learn our way of strength. The crowd grew silent. Today, Heron continued, he will train with our warriors. He will learn balance, control, and the meaning of peace through power. Tomu stepped forward and bowed his head. I am ready. The training began with slow movements. The Viraya warriors stood in a circle, each holding a wooden staff. They moved in unison, like waves rolling across the land. Tomu followed, copying their steps. Mira stood nearby, watching him with quiet pride. At first, Tomu's movements were rough. His feet were too fast, his hands too stiff. But the warriors did not laugh. They simply moved around him, showing the way through their rhythm. One of them, an older fighter named Rico, stepped forward and guided Tomu's hands. Do not fight the air, Rico said. Flow with it. Tomu listened carefully. He took each step with more care. His staff moved with the wind instead of against it. Slowly, his body began to follow the music of the movement. As the day passed, the training became harder. They began paired exercises. Tomu faced several warriors, one by one, learning how to block and redirect attacks. It was not about winning. It was about staying calm and focused. When Mira stepped into the ring, Tomu felt his heart beat faster. She moved with grace and speed, her eyes calm but sharp. Their staffs clashed lightly, and each strike tested his balance. She spun low, and he jumped back. She moved high, and he ducked. They circled each other, smiling. It was not a fight. It was a lesson. You're learning fast, Mira said between movements. I have a good teacher, Tomu replied. After the session, everyone sat under the shade of the tall trees. Fruits and water were passed around. The mood was peaceful. Even Rico, who had barely spoken before, gave Tomu a nod of approval. Chief Heron approached, holding a small stone in his hand. It was smooth and round, with a silver marking in the center. This is given to those who walk the path with heart and honor, Heron said. You have earned your place among us. Tomu accepted the stone with both hands. He felt a strong warmth in his chest. I will carry it with pride, he said. That evening, Mira invited him to her home. It was simple and quiet, with walls made of smooth stone and shelves filled with old books and small glowing stones. She poured a warm drink into 2 cups and handed one to him. You've come far since the day you arrived, she said. Tomu smiled. I've had to learn a lot in a short time. Mira looked out the window. The stars were starting to appear in the sky. My people are slow to trust outsiders. But you showed them something real. Not with speeches, but with your actions. Tomu looked at her. I never planned any of it. I just tried to do what felt right. She turned toward him. That's what makes it meaningful. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the sound of the wind. Tomu felt calm, but also aware that something important was changing inside him. He no longer felt like just a visitor. He felt connected to the land, to the people, and to Mira. As he left her home that night, Mira walked with him to the path. There's a festival coming soon, she said. The Festival of Stars. It's when our 2 moons cross above the village. It only happens once every 10 years. Tomu nodded. I've never seen twin moons together. Mira smiled. You will. And this time, you'll be seeing them not as a stranger, but as one of us. Tomu looked up at the sky. The stars were brighter than ever. He thought of Earth, so far away, and of how much had changed in such a short time. The path he walked now was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about becoming part of something greater. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The sun dipped low behind the forest trees, and the sky turned golden. The village of Virea was busy with people preparing for the upcoming Festival of Stars. Lights were being hung, food was being cooked, and songs were already filling the air. It was a time of joy, but for Tomu, the evening brought a different kind of feeling. He had done well during the training. The villagers had started smiling at him. Children waved when he passed. He had become more than just a guest. But something still remained unfinished that evening. As Tomu walked near the edge of the village gardens, he saw Chief Heron standing alone beside a tall crystal tree. The tree reflected the sky like a mirror. Heron's arms were crossed, and his face was thoughtful. He turned slowly as Tomu approached. Walk with me, Heron said. Tomu followed in silence. They walked along a quiet path beside a small stream. The sound of the water made the air calm. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Heron stopped and looked out at the forest. You have gained respect here, he said. You train with our warriors. You returned from the forest with more than we asked. Even my daughter speaks highly of you. Tomu stood still. I've tried to do what's right. Heron nodded. Yes, but there is something I must ask you. Not as a leader, but as a father. Tomu waited. My daughter has a soft heart, but she is strong. She will someday take my place and lead our people. Anyone who walks beside her must carry not only strength, but wisdom. I must know where you stand. Tomu looked down for a moment, then met Heron's eyes. Mira has helped me more than anyone. I didn't come here looking for this connection, but now I can't ignore it. I respect her. I want to be someone worthy of standing beside her. Heron studied him in silence. Then prove it to me. He said, not in battle and not with words. Tomorrow morning, We will go to the high stones. There's a lesson there that every leader must learn. If you can understand it, you will have my trust." Tomu gave a slow nod. "I'll be there." The next morning, before the suns had fully risen, Tomu met Chief Heron at the edge of the village. They walked together without speaking. The path led into the hills, where the trees gave way to flat land and sharp rocks after a long climb. They reached the high stones. The high stones were large gray pillars standing in a wide circle. They were old, shaped by wind and time. In the center stood one large stone with strange symbols carved across its surface. "This is where our leaders come to reflect," Heron said. "Not all tests are physical. Some require silence." He placed a small bowl of water in the middle of the stone circle. "This water is from the river," he said. "It is clean and still. Your task is to keep it from spilling while storms pass around you." Tomu looked at the clear water. "What kind of storm?" Heron pointed to the sky. "One will come soon. Not a storm of wind, but a storm of thoughts. You will sit here, holding the bowl, and face what rises inside you." Tomu sat cross-legged, holding the bowl carefully in both hands. Heron stepped back and sat quietly under the shade of a rock. For the first few minutes, everything was peaceful. The wind was soft, birds flew overhead. But slowly, Tomu felt his mind begin to wander. Doubt whispered to him. What if this test was something he could not pass? What if he failed in front of Heron? He remembered the first day he arrived, when everyone had stared at him with unsure eyes. He remembered the mistake he made with Mira, how his words had caused trouble. He remembered the walk through the forest, carrying both the flower and the child, feeling the weight of each step. His hands shook slightly, and the water rippled. He took a slow breath and tried to steady himself. He began to think not of his fears, but of the people he had come to know. He thought of Mira, her laughter, her guidance, her strength. He thought of Rico, who had taught him patience and training. He thought of the little boy Ren, who had smiled when he was safe again. These thoughts calmed him. His grip became steady. The water stopped shaking. Time passed. Tomu did not know how long he had sat there, but when he finally heard her aunt's voice again, it was near sunset. "You may stand," the chief said. Tomu rose slowly, still holding the bowl. The water inside was calm and full. Heron stepped forward and took the bowl with both hands. He looked at Tomu with quiet respect. "You passed," he said. "This test is not about strength. It is about balance. A leader does not act from fear. He acts with care. You held yourself steady." Tomu bowed slightly. "Thank you for giving me the chance." Heron looked at the sky, where both moons were beginning to rise. "The Festival of Stars will begin tonight," he said. "You should stand beside my daughter, not as a guest, but as one who has earned his place." As they walked back to the village, the lights were already shining. Music filled the air. Families gathered around long tables, and children danced under the twin moons. Mira stood near the center of the village square, wearing a silver robe and a crown of forest flowers. When she saw Tomu and her father approaching, she stepped forward. "Chief." Heron nodded once and stepped back. Mira looked at Tomu, her eyes bright. "You came back," she said. "I always will," Tomu replied. That night, under the stars and the glow of the two moons, the human and the alien girl stood side by side, not by accident, not by mistake, but by trust, honor, and choice. The twin moons of Virea rose high above the village. One was soft blue, the other silver white. When they crossed paths in the sky once every 10 years, their light mixed and painted the land below with a magical glow. This night was special. It was the Festival of Stars, and the whole village of Virea was alive with celebration. Colorful lanterns hung from trees. Music filled the air. The sound of drums and wind shells echoed across the valley. People wore robes of bright colors, decorated with leaves and stones that shimmered in the moonlight. Tables were full of sweet fruits, roasted seeds, and warm bread. Children ran through the village, laughing and chasing glowing insects. Tomu stood at the center of it all, dressed in a variety robe given to him by Mira. It was dark green with silver patterns across the arms. On his chest was a small badge made of stone. It was the same stone Chief Heron had given him during training. It marked him as a friend of the Virai, someone trusted and accepted. He looked around and felt something deep inside him. When he first arrived, he was an outsider, a visitor. Now, he felt part of something greater. He was no longer just observing their world. He was living in it. Mira approached him through the crowd. Her robe was teal and silver, matching her skin, and glowing softly under the moons. Her long braid was wrapped with flowers and small crystal beads. She smiled when she saw him. "You look like a true son of Viraya," she said. Tamu smiled back. "You look like the heart of this place." They walked side by side through the festival. As they passed, people greeted them with smiles and warm nods. Some offered food. Others handed small gifts like painted stones or woven bands. Tomu accepted each one with thanks. Near the village square, a large open space had been cleared for the moon dance. It was an old tradition where people danced in circles to honor the stars and moons above. The drums began to beat slowly. One by one, people stepped into the circle. Mira turned to Tomu. "Would you dance?" Tomu hesitated. "I don't know the steps. Just follow me," she said with a smile. He took her hand, and they entered the circle together. The rhythm of the drums guided their feet. The movements were slow at first. Step, turn, step. Again, Mira led him gently, and soon Tomu found the rhythm. Round them, the circle grew larger. Everyone moved as one. The ground shook lightly with the beat. The moons above looked down like guardians. Tomu lost track of time. He didn't think about mistakes or who was watching. He felt the music, the movement, and the closeness of Mira beside him. Her hand in his gave him balance. Her smile gave him peace. After the dance, they stepped away and sat near a quiet tree. The sounds of the festival still filled the air, but this place was calm. "You've changed a lot since the day you arrived," Mira said. Tomu looked at the stars. "I feel like a different person." "Not different," Mira said, "just more true. Sometimes a new place helps you see your real self." Tomu nodded slowly. "I've learned so much here. About your people, about myself, and about what matters." Mira looked at him. "What matters to you now?" Tomu turned to her. "This place, these people, and you." She looked down for a moment, then met his eyes again. "My father respects you now. The others do too. But more than that, I see who you really are. Someone who doesn't run from hard things. Someone who listens." Tomu's voice was soft. "I came here as a guest, but I want to stay as more than that." Mira didn't answer right away. She looked at the twin moons above them. Then she reached into her robe and pulled out a small charm. It was shaped like a leaf with a tiny moonstone in the center. "This is a sign of bond among our people," she said. "Not a promise, but a beginning." She placed it in his hand. Tomu looked at the charm, then back at her. "I'll keep it close." They sat together under the glowing sky, listening to the music. In the distance, the wind was cool, and the stars were bright. The village was full of laughter, dance, and joy. But to Tomu, this quiet moment meant the most. Later, Chief Heron joined them. He stood silently for a moment, then sat beside them. "This night will be remembered," he said. "Not just for the moons or the dance, but for what we learned." Tomu nodded. "I'm still learning." Heron looked at him with calm eyes. "That is what makes you ready." He stood and looked at Mira. "When the moons rise like this again, it may be your time to lead. Until then, learn from the world, and learn from each other." Mira nodded. "I will, Father." The chief gave a small nod to Tomu and walked back toward the village lights. Tomu looked at Mira again. "Do you think Earth and Viraya can truly be close?" Mira smiled. "We already are. It started with you." As the night grew deeper, the twin moons crossed fully above the sky. The stars sparkled like diamonds across the darkness. The village of Viraya danced and sang. But under the tree near the edge of the square, Tomu and Mira sat side by side, silent and still. Their hands rested together. Not by mistake, not by force, but by choice. The morning after the Festival of Stars was quiet and peaceful. A soft wind moved through the trees. The air was fresh and cool. Birds sang gently in the distance, and the sky was painted with light pink and gold. The village of Virea slowly came back to life. Tamu stood at the edge of a high cliff that looked over the valley. Below, he could see the wide river, the tall trees, and the colorful houses of the Virai people. He held the small moonleaf charm that Mira had given him. It rested in his hand like a promise. He thought about everything that had happened since he arrived, the misunderstanding, the trial of intention, the time in the forest, the trust he earned, the people he met, and Mira. Behind him, footsteps approached. It was Mira. Her robe was simple today, light green with white lines. Her hair was loose, flowing in the breeze. She smiled when she saw him. "You're up early," she said. Tamu smiled back. "I wanted to see the valley one more time before I speak with your father." Mira stood beside him and looked out over the land. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" "Yes," Tamu said. "But it's more than that. It feels like home now." She turned to him. "You still have a choice. You can go back to Earth, continue your mission, return to your old life, or you can stay here." Tomu looked at the charm again. "I don't think I can leave. Not now. This place changed me. It showed me what really matters." Mira touched his hand gently. "Then talk to him. My father is waiting." They walked together to the council hall. It was a round building made of stone and wood, standing strong in the center of the village. Inside, Chief Heron sat alone on a wooden seat. He looked serious, but not cold. He motioned for Tomu to sit across from him. Mira waited outside. Tomu sat down and took a deep breath. "Thank you for meeting me." Heron nodded. "You have earned the right to speak freely." Tomu spoke with honesty. "When I first came here, I was only a visitor. I didn't know your ways. I made mistakes, but I learned from them. Your people showed me kindness, and your daughter showed me something more. I want to stay. I want to help build a better future between our people. Not as a soldier, not as a guest, but as one of you." Heron listened quietly. Then he leaned forward. "Many come and go. Few understand us. You showed respect in action, not only in words. You passed the trial. You saved one of our young. You brought peace, not trouble." Tomu stayed still, waiting. Heron finally smiled. "Just a little. You may stay, Tomu of Earth, but you must still earn the path ahead. Words of the heart are heavy. Be sure you carry them well." "I will," Tomu said. "I give my word." Heron stood. "Then let this be your beginning." Outside, Mira waited with hope in her eyes. When she saw Tomu's smile, she knew what it meant. She stepped forward and hugged him. It was gentle, but full of meaning. "I'm glad," she whispered. In the days that followed, Tomu became more involved in the daily life of the village. He helped build shelters. He studied their stories. He shared knowledge about Earth's farming and medicine. He listened to the elders. He played with the children. He was no longer seen as a visitor. He was one of them. The other humans on the mission noticed the change too. They came to speak with the elders, to ask questions, to learn instead of just observe. The bond between Earth and Virea grew stronger, not through treaties, but through simple acts of trust. One evening, the elders called a special gathering. People gathered in the village square. A large fire was lit in the center. The stars above shined bright. Chief Heron stood before the people. "Tonight, we honor one who came from far and stayed through storm and peace. He is not just a guest, he is our bridge." He called Tomu forward. Mira stood beside him. Heron placed a carved stone band around Tomu's wrist. "This marks you as a friend of Virea. Your path is yours now. Walk it with care." The people clapped softly, a sign of respect among the Virai. Mira smiled with pride. Later that night, Tomu and Mira sat under the same tree where they once watched the festival. "I still can't believe this is real," Tomu said. Mira looked at him. "It's real because we made it real. You chose to stay. We chose to understand each other." Tomu looked up at the stars. "Do you think Earth will ever be like this?" Mira thought for a moment. "Maybe, If more people learn to listen first and speak later, like you did, Tomu took her hand. Then let's teach them, together. She nodded. Together. The stars above shine bright and quiet. The wind moved gently through the trees. The village behind them was full of peace. And under that calm sky, a new chapter had begun. One built on courage, kindness, and the power of simple understanding.